if they want to. From there, they told me I could get a decent place to stay in prison for 50,000, for 100,000, for 150. He even said 1 million. This was in 2019.
1 million. So how much are they supposed to be charging you per day for this supposed?
Different special rooms, depending on how much money you had. When the guy said 1 million, I said 1 million. He said yes. When Fisayo Fij was in Ikoyi prison, do you think he stayed in the general cell?
Wow.
That's the answer they gave me. These things are on tape. I'm not making allegations. These were things that happened to me that I filmed with the secret service. Tell the Nigerian Prison Service to produce it. Everything is on tape. The warders then told me that the warders in the prison had told the ones in court not to be striking deals with inmates, to wait for the inmates to get to prison so that the ones in prison would strike the deals by themselves.
Oh, because we were changing the warders.
Yes,
by striking
the warders in court. Yes, even in court, somebody approached me. You know, the warders, call, say, who is working on your bill? They called someone. The person, the lawyer, came and said, I work with the magistrate. If you pay 200,000 naira, you will sleep in your house tonight, even though the magistrate had pronounced remanded in prison.
Wow.
Yes, the only reason it didn't work out is I wanted to go to prison, not to get out.
So aside from, so even when you were in prison, what was the condition like?
What you get to prison,
wise, health-wise,
before you talk about sanitation, corruption it's an impossibly corrupt system. You get documented as a new, inmate. They take your details, and you submit any cash on you. The idea is that inmates should not be in possession of cash. You give your cash to the records office. Then you go back to the records office to say, oh, I want to make a call. I want to buy coke. I want to buy food. They release to you in bits so that you can't commit any crime. You can't do it. They then have, the warders then have convicts. Remember, they're awaiting trial inmates, they're convicted inmates. The convicted inmates know that they have nowhere to go. Someone who has a 7-year jail sentence, a 10-year jail sentence, is loyal to the prison warders. Because that's your home for the next 7, 10, regardless of your sentence. Those ones then come to you, being documented, say, out of your money, you will remove 1,000 naira to the woman at the records office, doing the documentation. And we're many. When they allocate, so after they take your pictures online, then in print, they do double documentation online and in print, and then they allocate you to a cell. The prison warden in charge of the cell, you have to pay that. As of then, 29, it was 1,000 naira.
Per what? Per...
Just for being in the cell, for nothing.
How many of you are usually in the cell?
So many. It depends on how many inmates they bring in. I spent 8 days in Ikoyi prison. The lowest number of awaiting trial inmates brought in was 16. Sometimes 40-something. Sometimes
40-something in that one cell.
No. Just that's so. On the first night, you sleep in a place called welcome cell. You don't sleep like this. You don't sleep like this. You sleep like this. Like crayfish. When you open sardine, have you ever opened sardine? The way they pack, I'm not exaggerating. It's exactly. If Bobby spent one night in welcome, you think he will come out and speak to anybody? You won't come out. That first night, you keep asking yourself, who sent me?
Wow.
Because if I sleep and my head is facing the direction this way, the next person to me, the head then is in this direction.
So
you cannot turn.
Is at the back of your
head. You cannot turn. You sleep like this all night.
If
there's no how you cannot turn. That's how you sleep. Its punishment is, and the thing is that once you have money, you bypass all these things. So
really,
the prison authorities have to decide what they want to do. Is the prison supposed to be a punitive, or as I've never referred to them as Nigerian correctionals? What are they correcting? Many of these prison warders should actually be behind bars themselves. Inmates have phones. How do they have phones? The warders sell phones to inmates. This is not an allegation. Some of the tweets you see are inmates tweeting on Facebook. Now, if you want inmates to have access to phones, yes, go there and want to commit suicide because they're in prison. It has to be a level playing ground. You don't bring people in for corruption and then you sell. So I want a phone in prison. A warder then comes and says it's 250,000. The phone is 150,000 in the market. The warder sells it for 250,000, and then that's it.
And where do you get it? Supposed 250,000 to pay for it?
It's your choice. If you want the phone, are you not the one who wants to? You are in prison. You are in prison. You don't have a choice. By the way, a prisoner, and even if it's awaiting trial, you can't talk to a warder unless you squat. You can't stand in front.
As in literally squats?
Yes. You cannot squat. You can't. If a warder is seated and you want to talk to that warder, you can't stand and talk. You squat. Awaiting trial, you've not been pronounced guilty. So it is that bad. Now, when the system refuses to acknowledge its failings, then there won't be progress. So if it comes on national TV to then come and say there are allegations, that's not progress. They seized my device. So ask them, produce that device. Let us watch the videos. Shoyamba is lying. Let's play the videos we seized from him to prove that he's a liar.
Okay, let me get to Inibehe. This is just very amazing. So Inibehe, no, I want to ask Inibehe a question before I get to Mr. Francis. So Inibehe, let me ask you. You have been in prison before. So first and foremost, I would like for you to share your own personal experience as well. But aside that, what are the legal repercussions for prisoners who have arranged preferential treatment for their sentences? Can they be reincarcerated?
On the 27th of July, 2022, I appeared before the learned Chief Judge of Akwa Ibom State, the Honorable Justice Ekaite Fabian Obut, in a libel suit filed by the immediate past governor of Akwa Ibom State, Mr. Udom Gabriel Emmanuel, against my client, Mr. Liu Ekpenyo. When the Chief Judge came in that day, in summary, armed policemen with AK-47 were brought inside the courtroom and they sat directly behind me. And that was the first thing that happened immediately the Chief Judge came in. And so the proceedings started. Before then, of course, I had already filed application praying the Honorable Chief Judge to recuse herself from further presiding over the matter. The application was never taken, it was ignored. So when the proceedings started, of course, I tried to make the Chief Judge to hear that application. Again, it was ignored. In the course of the proceedings, a journalist with Premium Times, Mr. Fisayo Fij Inibehe, this Chief Judge ordered him to stand up. Of course, he has been covering the court and making reports about the proceedings in the matter. So the Chief Judge, in summary, ordered him to leave the court, and then he was arrested and taken out of the court. As a lawyer, I just stood up and said, my Lord, we had thought that the Constitution allows for publicity of trial and that the court should be accessible to all persons, including the media. Of course, the Chief Judge berated me and then stated that except I was the one who brought in the journalists to disparage her. So I left the issue. I now went to the issue of the armed men who were behind me. I said, my Lord, I have also observed the presence of armed men in court, that this is not the tradition of our profession. Even though I'm not afraid of them, however, it has created hostility and trial cannot continue under this atmosphere. My Lord, may they be ordered to leave the court. The Chief Judge was very inflamed, very infuriated by that observation, and then rejected it. So I then said, my Lord, I'm now making it as a formal application. Because as a lawyer, if you make an appeal to a judge, the judge can say no, but the law allows you to make it formally, in which case the judge is required to make a ruling, write a ruling. So as I was talking, you know when you are talking as a lawyer and the judge is writing what you are saying, you feel you are making sense, that you are sounding intelligible. Unknown to me, it was my committal to prison that the Chief Judge was writing. It had absolutely nothing to do with the observation. So as I was talking, the Chief Judge just simply ordered me to step out of the bar and then ordered that I should be taken to prison.
When you got into prison?
So from there, I was taken to the prison, initially to the Uyo Correctional Service. They were supposed to keep me there because of this COVID regulation at the time. They took me to Institut Gov. As I was getting to Institut Gov, of course, they have, you know, what they call admission. Fisayo will be familiar with that. Admission is when you come in, you introduce yourself, they take your details, they take your image, your particulars, and so on, and then decide the cell you will be, and all those sort of things. Now, the truth of the matter, let's not deceive ourselves, is that as of today, there is clearly nothing correctional about the Nigerian Correctional Service. The system is completely flawed. And I have had cause to say that the Correctional Service in Nigeria requires fundamental reforms. Nearly everything Fisayo has said is the truth. I can confirm to you that, yes, there are what they call special cells. When I was in Institut Gov prison, they put me in the so-called special cell, right? And 50,000 was collected for that. I mean, I'm confirming to you, so I'm not telling you. These are things I have said publicly. I'm not telling you what I was told. I'm telling you my own experience. 50,000 for 2 weeks. And they insisted that, oh, you cannot stay in the general cell. You know you are VIP. You know you are this, you are that. So, and guess what? The so-called VIP cell, there's nothing VIP about it. The condition there is not even nothing. But at least in comparison to the other places, maybe some relative, you know, better than the cell that I would have ordinarily stayed. But that VIP cell is inside the premises of the prison. It's not outside. So the truth is that in the prison, you have to buy space as an inmate. I paid for lights. You know, they don't even, in fact, for about almost the entire period, I was in Uyo Correctional Custodial Center. Because I spent 2 weeks in Ikot Ekpene, 2 weeks in Uyo. We did not have electricity supply. Inmates were the ones who paid for their own kerosene. And they used lantern. I paid 1,000 for kerosene. And guess what? It is the water that are selling the kerosene. Everything in the prison is paid for. The food that inmates are served, you will not serve your dog. The gari is not only bad, it is despicable. If you see the food, so I didn't eat the so-called food there. I did not drink their water for the 1 month. I was on self-feeding. The system allows you to apply for self-feeding. I mean, if I had eaten what they served, I'm not sure I would have come out alive. Self-feeding, if you write a letter to the prison to say, I want to take responsibility for my own feeding. Okay. So you now nominate either your relative, your spouse, or whoever to be the one to be bringing food for you.
You pay for that privilege?
No, for the self-feeding, you don't have to pay. Okay. You just simply need to apply and then nominate someone to bring food for you. Because the food they are selling, giving to inmates, is ridiculous. So inmates now have to devise internal way of, concocting whatever they are served to make it, possible to swallow, not to eat. Inmates don't eat, they swallow. I'm trying to make that distinction. Because if you say they are eating, it's not food that they are served. And this is something I have said repeatedly. In fact, the correctional service in Nigeria is so bad. The day I arrived in Ikot Ekpene on the 27th of July, an inmate had died the previous day. The day I was leaving, an inmate had died. The day I arrived with you, an inmate had died. Like it was as if the death in the correctional service is so rampant. The healthcare is nothing to write home about. This is not limited to the correctional service that I was, the custodial center. It's a national thing. What Fisayo is telling you is not a lie. When you see how inmates are sleeping, the point he did not make is that you have to pay for the space. And this space you are paying for is to allow you to sleep properly. So there are inmates that, I'm telling you, there are inmates that have to stand. That I'm telling you that they may not even have the space, like to even squeeze themselves.
Oh my goodness.
It is so congested. It is so diabolical. The hygiene is zero. The water is nothing to write home about. The feeding. So I used to tell these NGOs that go to prison to donate food, you are wasting your time. If you want to go to these custodial centers to donate food items, donate on used clothes or whatever, be sure that you are there when those things are distributed to inmates.
Okay, because they never get to the purpose.
The correctional officers, many of them are also prisoners. The only distinction is the uniform. They are grossly underpaid. I don't know if you are aware. They are grossly underpaid. Their welfare is nothing to write home about, so they struggle with the food. In fact, when I was for the 1 month I was there, I had food in excess. I mean, people were bringing all sorts of things for me. It is not only prisoners who were struggling for the food, even the correctional officers. Yes. So the system has completely collapsed. And guess what? Part of the reason that awaiting trial inmates stay for so long to go to court is that before you are even sometimes taken to court, you have to facilitate it. Yeah. If your relative don't come to give money, right, to in-charge court, they call it in-charge court, the officer in charge of taking people to court, you may not have a court appearance. Because there are people, let me also shock you. Do you know that there are inmates in Nigerian prisons today that nobody outside knows that they are there? Oh I met a gentleman from Adamawa who was in Uyo prison. Nobody knew. Nobody outside the four walls of the prison knew that he was there. And it's not isolated. There are people in prison that cannot be accounted for. There are people in prison that their court records cannot be traced. There are people in prison that have not been awaiting trial, that have not been taken to court for up to 5 years. Oh my God. It is that terrible. The system has completely collapsed. So one of the things I did while I was living is that, by the grace of God, I was able to facilitate the release of about 17 inmates when I was leaving. Because some of them were released on bail, they cannot perfect their bail. So all I simply had to do was that to make money available and get them out on release. And those that needed fine and all that. So what I'm telling you is that let the minister stop this hypocritical investigation. What the National Assembly is doing, as far as I'm concerned, is a product of parliamentary redundancy. Having not been able to do the real work that Nigerians have voted them to do, they are now distracting themselves with the Bobrisky matter. The member who moved that motion, Patrick Umo, was my senior in the university. He's a lawyer. I know he's a thorough person. But what they should investigate It's not even just about Bobrisky. Bobrisky, for me, the whole investigation to a large extent is a distraction. The real issue is the rot in the system, is the way inmates are treated as animals. In fact, the day I arrived with you, 2 weeks after I got they took me to you, this assistant controller of corrections told me, I had to challenge. I said, Madam, do you treat people as animals here? I said, yes, we treat you as animals. You don't have any rights here.
She actually verbally told you that?
She, me. Of course, at that time, maybe, she had not known who she was speaking to. But she said it, this woman said it to me, here we treat you as animals. Inmates don't have any rights in the prisons. They have no rights. And it pains me because you will literally die. In fact, there was a gentleman who, in Institut Gov, had an accident. His legs was seriously fractured. The medical facility there could not cater for him. I was the one who undertook responsibility for his treatment. And I did the same thing for several inmates. So I'm just telling you, it's not to sing my praise, I'm telling you how bad the situation is. There are inmates that, they have a call center in the prisons. There are inmates who cannot even afford to call their relative. So the system has completely collapsed. Anybody that tells you that we have this correctional service that is correcting inmates is wasting his time. That is why when people go there, in many occasions, they come back, they are more emboldened. They go back to crime. There is nothing reformative about that system. The entire system is based on a mindset of slavery. It is based on a mindset of subversion. And guess what? Many of the people that are actually in prison are innocent. Okay, they've not committed any offense.
I'm going to ask Shoyombo a similar question, but let me get back to Mr. Francis. Are you there? You've had these very heavy allegations being made by our two guests in the House. So before you even decide to answer and respond to what they just said, I want to ask you, during his appearance before the House of Representatives, Michael Ananugwa, the Deputy Controller of Corrections, responsible for the Medium Security Custodial Center at Kirikiri, referred to his suspension as a social media suspension. How transparent is the prison system when it comes to addressing and reporting issues like corruption, abuse, just like my two guests have said, or unequal treatment? Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you very much.
So first we'll talk about...
Yes, I heard you.
Go ahead.
Yes. Thank you very much. The issue of the officer in charge of the facility in Lagos that made that comment during the hearing, I want to excuse myself from making comments about that because it's already, there are very substantial, hearings by, different bodies. The Honorable Minister has instituted investigation, and the House is hearing the issue. So I am not. Of course, you know that I'm a retired officer, so I may not be able to speak to what to ascertain the veracity of his claim. Now, to the gory picture that is being painted by the gentleman in the studio. That's their own account. It's unfortunate that, just like I said earlier, that we have platforms for reporting characters that are out of place. They are boldly displayed on the walls and gates of every custodial facilities around the country. We expected that if they cannot access these avenues, their relations, their friends who visit them should have used any of the platforms to report some of these allegations.
They've gone on.
Secondly,
sorry, sir.
I did mention.
Can I just interrupt you there? Let me just interrupt you briefly. The two people in the House today have been very vociferous about their complaints and their discoveries and their findings. So it's not a question of, they should report to certain quarters and it will be handled from there. They are telling you now, you listen to their conversation, they are telling you the extreme measures they have gone to. Even one of them has said that there are tapes as evidence. Do you understand? So my point is, when it gets to this level of their complaints and the fact that they've created so much awareness about it, what are the proactive steps that prison officials have taken to put an end to this? Let's leave all the big English and felicitations and what have you.
It's okay.
These two have made it clear that they've gone to extreme measures to draw attention to these severe, dastardly situations that they have described. So what I want to hear from you, sir, is that these are the steps that have been taken, how you've wronged those rights, right those wrongs, and where we intend to move forward to ensure that things like this don't happen again. Sorry, go ahead, sir.
Yes, you know, recall that when we started this conversation, I did mention that several measures have been taken in the past, and they are still being taken to address some of these infractions. And that several officers have been either dismissed or reduced in rank. And anytime some of these actions are taken, we normally publish. I'm surprised that some of these publications that we usually use different media to make known to the public that the authority does not condone any act of indiscipline, that people don't really know much about them. We have internal mechanism for dealing with such infractions. And I also mentioned that Nigeria, I have never come on air to say that Nigerian Correctional Service is run by angels. We have bad eggs everywhere, just like you have in every other organization. I think what is important is establishing whether the institution has credible mechanism for addressing some of these infractions. And before we go further, please permit me to say something, and it's very important. Yes, I have acknowledged that, yes, there are bad eggs, the people are bound to behave whatever way they choose to, but we have means of reining them in. Let me quickly say, with due respect to modesty, that Nigerian Correctional Service may not be as bad as is being painted, and I have my reasons.
But they're giggling
several years ago. Let us look at the issue of health. Let us look at the issue of health.
My two guests, and
support.
My two guests are giggling at that comment.
I said, let us look at the issue of health.
Okay.
Let us look at the issue of healthcare services. You recall that some couple of years back, cerebrospinal meningitis ravaged the society. Most northern states, about 19 northern states, were ravaged by CSN. Yet, Nigeria Correctional Service never lost a prisoner to that scourge. In 2014, when Ebola invaded most countries in Africa, Nigeria Correctional Service never lost a single soul. Recently, in 2020, when COVID-19 came and brought all nations on their knees, even some of those highly advanced countries that claim to know tomorrow, they all capitulated. But Nigeria Correctional Service remained afloat. We never lost a single soul.
Can I ask you a question? Talking about health and what have you?
Let us look at even at that 2021. A senior advocate of Nigeria accused the Correctional Service of hiding his client, who was suffering from COVID-19. When we went into it, we discovered that the child of this alleged patient and his lawyer, they went to the correctional facility. They saw him there. I mean, they saw the inmate there, hale and healthy. Nothing wrong with the inmate. And it was all because we were able to shut down the system and then do the needful to ensure that the disease did not escalate. We also look at the issue of education. We are saying that the whole system has come down to ground zero. Look at the issue of educational intervention and psychosocial support we provide for the inmates. How many of the inmates are doing their running their educational program, courtesy the support of the National Open University of Nigeria? How many are doing their masters? How many are doing their PhD program? What about vocational training programs? How many do we have in the street? I'm not saying we are out of the woods, that there are no problems. That is not what I mean. But what I'm trying to say is, for you to completely run down the system, that there is nothing good in it, is to ground zero, I beg to say, I don't entirely agree.
Okay, let me ask you another question.
Yes, there are problems everywhere. There's no doubt about it.
Let me ask you, Mr. Francis, another question, because, I mean, let's get back to the issue of what even ignited this conversation in the first place, which is the issue of Bobrisky. Now, Bobrisky is a male person, is a man, but with female anatomy. So in such cases, where would he be? Where was he put? Was he in the male prison or female prison? And if you have cases where you have to take people out of a particular this prison and put them in a particular segment, what's the criteria for that?
We don't have any private prison outside the walls of the custodial facility where we keep anybody anywhere. So if anybody has that counter, or you have evidence to prove that there is an apartment that exists outside the four walls of custodial facilities where inmates are kept, the person is free to prove it. I know the Bobrisky issue, I want to be careful with the way I talk about that because investigations are going on. But I do know that Bobrisky is a man and he was kept in a male facility. What we do, what I can speak to now, is that we profile inmates as they are coming into the facility.
Thank you for watching. If you're new to this channel, consider subscribing so you won't miss out any of our latest videos.